Все, ребят, сейчас тогда начинаем. Let's go.
Okay.
Hi guys. So
Hello.
Sitecore user group is back again, and today we have an awesome lineup. Our first speaker is from Sitecore, Thomas Varga. Welcome.
Thank you.
So welcome, Thomas. After Thomas, we also have two interesting topics from Artem Delevich and also from Daniil Rashupkin, our two visitors, really cool visitors. So let's see how to go and have fun. Thomas, go.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. So I'm working for Sitecore. I'm a senior technical evangelist, which means that we are talking about a lot of things to everyone in different places around the globe. In Sitecore, one of my responsibilities is really to run the MVP program. Have you heard about the MVP program before? Yes. Who are the MVPs in the room? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, no. Okay. So many. So even though the question is how to become an MVP, I don't have a recipe for you, or I don't have something like do this and that, like one by one. And but I try to, present to you something about the program for you to understand what kind of things, if you do those kind of things, you most probably become an MVP, but that's no guarantee. It's I can also talk about the selection process. So, but the first question is always, why do you want to be a Sitecore MVP? Many people have different answers for that. Some people just want to be in this group because it's really nice international group. Some people hope that they will get some pay rise for it. But really, I think one of the greatest things in the Sitecore community that we have this really strong group who is helping each other and also running different things like the hackathon. Where are the hackathon winners? Oh yes, the hackathon winners. So hackathon and other things what we have is all run by the community. For example, the Sitecore user group conference, even though Sitecore is supporting it, but it's all run by 12 guys. Usually at Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. we get on a call and we start discussing what should be the topics, what should be the next venue, and so on. So these are the 12 guys putting week by week a couple of hours into the organization, doing the websites, inviting speakers, selecting speakers, and so on and so on. So all these things makes the Sitecore community really great, and Sitecore would like to recognize those people. And the recognition is really the Sitecore MVP award. As I mentioned, year by year we are selecting the MVPs, which means that if you become an MVP one year, you might not be an MVP the next year. It's really based on the contribution to the community. And the contribution to the community can be in many different ways, and you will hear about that. The MVPs are categorized. We have 4 different categories at the moment. We have technology. Of course, everyone is sharing the knowledge about everything Sitecore technically, writing about how to program something, how to install something, how to do DevOps on something, or creating robots like Robbie. Do you remember Robbie the robot? So that's the technology category. Also, commerce is a category. Commerce is really important part of Sitecore, and we would like to recognize the individuals who are contributing on the commerce scene. So it's sometimes closer to the technology, but it's so special that we created a special category for them. Strategy. So Sitecore is not just a CMS, not just a technology anymore, but Sitecore is a whole marketing platform where digital strategists are also key players. Without digital strategists, developers won't be able to really create anything because it doesn't make any sense to use Sitecore for a simple brochure website. So having strategists is really important, and we recognize these strategists year by year. And the new category what we introduced last year is ambassador. Ambassadors are really important for Sitecore also. Maybe you don't see them every day, you don't see them on the online channels, maybe they don't write blog posts, but these ambassadors are the ones who might be used to be developers but now managers or CTOs in a company. It's really important for them that in their company to have Sitecore as an expertise, and they are supporting others to become MVPs, to become part of this whole community. And also, in some way, some people say, oh, you can, if you sell a lot of Sitecore license, you will become an ambassador, MVP. No, that's not true. It's much more than that. Selling Sitecore is easy, but building a community is not that easy, and not everyone is doing that. So that's why this category is really important. So when we talk about the award, it's really important that it's individual. So it's not partner by partners. It's we give this award to one individual who is doing something beyond the day job. If you are doing your day job, you get the salary for that, you get the recognition from your company, but it's much more than just do your day job. It should be something beyond, doing something on your weekend or doing something Tuesday nights to organize like a user group conference. Of course, not everyone will organize a user group conference, but writing blog posts, being on Slack, helping others on Stack Exchange, all these things makes the user groups and the user community of Sitecore better and better place. And of course, this will be recognized by Sitecore with an MVP award. As I mentioned, I cannot really give you like a cannot give you like a step-by-step guide how you become an MVP. But there are some qualities if we talk about, for example, the technology field. What kind of things we are looking for when we award someone in the technology field? Be involved with the community. I already mentioned the Slack chat, the Stack Exchange, and everything online, like Twitter and everything what you can imagine. Like you might heard about the guy who is doing the podcast, the Core Sampler. You might have seen the episodes of Catching Exceptions, exactly, the video series. You know, it's up to you what kind of things you like to do. Do that for the community. Do something. It can be really anything. Like blog post, it's a blog post. If it's presenting on a conference, submit a paper. It's easy to submit a paper. Of course, it's not that easy to present, but at least be there. Have your name there with the community. I think that's the first thing. Open source modules. I think being developers, it could be quite easy to do something during your day job and make a module out of it, or just because you attended hackathon and you created something cool, turn it to an open source module so others can also contribute and others can use it. And that's definitely a recognition. More and more people using this. I don't know if you have participated this developer experience survey what we had during the summer. But it turned out that the top 3 most used extension to the Sitecore development kit is really open source modules like Glassmapper, Unicorn, and of course the PowerShell extension. These 3 are the top what everyone is using, and all of them open source. And without those, nearly nobody could really effectively develop for Sitecore. I guess you also using all these 3, at least if not 10 more. I already mentioned events. It's, you know, not everybody is a presenter, but being there, attending, and you know, maybe just volunteering to do something at these events. Of course, these user groups, either here or anywhere else, it's a great example of having events close to you. But it can be anything. Can be a webinar, can be a conference, can be really what you really like to do. And sharing expertise, that's the key. That's if you are with the community, if you are at events, if you are doing anything open source, you are sharing your knowledge, you are sharing your experience, and it don't have to be big. You don't have to think like, oh, I have to do something really big to be able to do that. But for example, Microsoft Cognitive Services, which is a service already there, and Sitecore, linking the 2 together. And making it an open source module and sharing it to everyone, I think That's a fantastic achievement, and of course you don't have to know anything about machine learning or artificial intelligence just to use these services from Microsoft and make a module out of it. And it should be continuous. So you will hear that the MVP nomination is coming in November. So if you start something now, maybe I would suggest not to nominate this year, but nominate next year. So if you can do something continuously, not just showing up on one event and that will solve everything, but continuously put the effort in there throughout the year, and you will most probably recognized by the end of the year. And the MVP program is much more than just the award. Of course, the award is what everyone likes to have it physically or have the badge on your, I don't know, blog or even your business card or on LinkedIn. That's really nice. But the MVP program is much more than the award itself. We have webinars for the MVPs where we share with them the latest developments, what we are doing. Also, we have regional meetings. So sometimes I participated in a meeting in the UK. We invited all the MVPs and just had a chat. Nothing really more. We handed over the awards, had some pizza and beer, and just chat. Because like meeting MVPs, and this is what I heard from one of you, that just like even meeting colleagues from other continents can be good to do that. And of course, with the same with MVPs. So if you have some other MVPs come to different events, this is the regional meetings. Also feedback sessions. So in some case we have some theory how things should work, like the publishing service or something else. And before we release something, we talk to the MVPs. This is the right way forward. This is how we should do it, or we should do it in a different way. Of course, Sitecore is building a product what is used day by day by you and your customers. So we would like to hear the feedback. And of course, the MVPs are the trusted external advisors to Sitecore, who knows what's going on in the field, what are the different issues with either publishing or anything else. And we have these feedback sessions. So MVPs are happy to share their opinion with us, and we are happy to receive all these feedbacks, and we are building the product based on those feedbacks. And this leads to the early access program. So a new version is coming out. Before it's coming out, like usually at least 1 month before that, we are releasing that software to the MVPs. Why? Of course, again, feedback. How is the installation going on? How is the documentation at the current stage? And so on. So MVPs has the advantage to get access to this software, and every early release, as much as we can, we're giving to the MVPs so they can try it out, they can prepare some blog posts. So as soon as the product will be released, MVPs will be able to blog about it, do videos about it, and so on. MVP Summit is the next big thing, which is usually after symposium every year, 1.5 days. So we finish symposium Thursday at noon, and Thursday afternoon we start the MVP Summit, where we invite all the product managers from Sitecore. So these guys who are developing the product, they will gather together with all the MVPs. So this year it will be more than 200 people all together in Orlando and discussing all those things, what's going on, what's cooking at behind the scenes, and MVPs can be involved, can share their feedback, again, from documentation to installation to even the machine learning, and everything what's coming will be shared at the MVP Summit. It's a big event with some fun night exercise. Last year it was a Top Golf. I don't know if you know Top Golf. It's a big building, like 3-4 story high, and you are one of the sides is open, so like this. So you are on the 3rd floor, and you have a golf, and you are just hitting it into into the darkness. It's really fun thing. So we organize something for the MVPs every year, and also last year the CEO was there, the new CEO Mark Frost, and hopefully also this year he will attend. And we are inviting Sitecore executives, so MVPs can meet with everyone at Sitecore. And of course there are some other smaller benefits, like at Symposium. If you are coming to Symposium and if you are MVP, you can sit in the first row. Last year, I don't know if you remember, at the Symposium we had the Last Jedi. Do you remember? So for example, MVPs can sit in the first row and can experience the keynote speakers from the first row. And some other minor benefits like having all different MVP belt, MVP socks, MVP everything. So we try to give MVPs, treat them as a VIPs, and I hope they feel like that. Just going on, talk about the MVP calendar. I mentioned that we are doing different things during the year. We have MVP webinars every quarter. We do the user group conference where we usually hand over the MVP award. And the MVP nomination is coming in November. Usually during November we have 2 or 3 weeks where you can apply to become an MVP. You have to list what kind of things you have done during the year. And in December and January we are selecting from those nominations the MVPs. And end of January we announce the new MVPs for the new year. And the new year is starting with kickoff webinar and different webinars throughout the year. So the first question could be, I mentioned so many times the community. How can I connect with the community? The good news, the Sitecore Stack Exchange has the answer for that. Do you know Sitecore Stack Exchange? So one of the questions, how can I connect with the Sitecore community? So go there, have a look, and you will see a lot of good information, including Sitecore Slack chat. The next one, Sitecore Slack chat, you have to sign up. But how you can sign up? You have to fill in a form. So just to remember this short URL, bit.ly/Sitecore Slack sign up. And using that, you will redirect it to a form, fill in the form, and you can be part of the community, which is, I think, now about 4,000 people chatting. So, you know, if you have any issues, put it in there, and even if you just turn your head, you might have the answer already. So it's so quick, and everyone is there really, so you can have one-on-one conversation with different people. You can have different channels for different topics like SXA, Azure, or anything else, and you can get an answer easily on Slack. Of course, if your question is something what you would like to save for the future, you go to Stack Exchange and ask it there. What to do on Twitter? Twitter is part of the social media where the Sitecore community is the most active. You can follow the Sitecore MVP account. So we are posting all the news, what's going on with the MVPs, and everything that's happening there. So you can learn about the MVP program following these at Sitecore MVP account. But also we are creating lists of MVPs every year. So if you don't want to figure out who are the MVPs on Twitter, we have a list for that. So you just follow that list and you can follow all the MVPs immediately. And of course, Sitecore is also there. So @Sitecore or hashmark or hashtag Sitecore is all there. So if you want to learn about anything happening in the Sitecore ecosystem, just follow those accounts. It can be also a question how to contact the MVP program, which is MVP team, which is myself and the technical evangelist team. You can find most of the information on our website, or you can email us at the mvp-program@sitecore.com. So email us, and in a couple of days you will get an answer if you have anything regarding the MVP program. And of course, as I mentioned, questions you can ask now if you want, but you can go to the community site, you can go to the Slack channel, you can go to Stack Exchange, and you can ask your questions there. So it was briefly because they said that after the talk I will get some beer, so I don't want to talk too long. So if you have any question, I'm happy to answer it now, or if you don't want to ask it in front of everyone, I will be here all night, so you can ask me questions.
So raise your hands.
There is one.
Thank you. So you mentioned that Sitecore MVP program has early access program. Is it an option to influence how Sitecore develops each year? I mean, MVP has early access. He found something strange, or the way how to, I don't know, introduce something new, and it could give feedback, and then it will be on the next release.
Exactly. So it happened, for example, with the Sitecore install framework. I don't know if you heard about that beautiful piece of PowerShell script. So we gave the Sitecore installation framework to the MVPs, and we got a lot of feedback from them, and we are changing the way how we manage the installation.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Any other questions?
Hey, do you have any plans to do nomination like have twice a year, for example, and not once a year?
No, no
Okay,
plans
yeah,
for
because
that.
I imagine someone can like develop a super cool model, so in the beginning of years, and he needs to wait until the end of the year to become an MVP.
Yes, I have to tell you that the number of nominations we receive every year, it's overwhelming. So I didn't talk about the selection process, but the selection process is really that we receive, I don't want to say exact numbers, but thousands of nominations.
Okay.
And we have to go through each of them, one by one, checking all the links. You can imagine 4,000 or 5,000 nominations. Each of them has, let's say, 5 links. Count how many links we have to check.
And do you have any limits on number of MVP each year? So I don't know, like this year, so we want to nominate only 200 or 300 or?
No, we would like to recognize everyone who is doing for the Sitecore community. It's the Sitecore MVP community is growing, even though the nominations are growing, let's say, 40% per year, but the number of MVPs are growing with 15% only. So we don't limit the number of MVPs. We just we would like to recognize everyone, but not everyone can get can be an MVP.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for the question. Any other questions? Then thanks, Thomas, a lot.
Okay, thank you very much.
Если что, ребята, пиво возле холодильника.
Алло, алло. Слышно?
So guys, we continue, and our next speaker is Artem Delevich. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks all for coming. Yeah, so my name is Artem Delevich. I'm a Sitecore solution architect working with Sitecore since 2012. So the last 3 years I've been living and working on multiple projects in Germany. So now continue working with German customers, but most part remotely, and live here in the best place for living in Minsk, in Belarus. So, right, you can find me at LinkedIn and whatever. So during my career, I was leading the projects right from the pre-sales workshops to go in live and support phase. And here in this presentation, I would like to go through all these stages, all the development cycle of projects, and give you some thoughts about it, some tips and recommendations. So basically how the projects are proceed from my perspective, how did I do the projects, etc. So as far as I understand, the audience is mostly are developers. Please raise your hand who is the developer of Sitecore. Yeah, almost everyone. Right. So the solution architect role is somewhere between the business and the development. So I have to know all the details about the technical stuff and also understand the business. Yeah. Usually the project is starting for me from the pre-sales meetings, from demos and workshops that we're going to the client. And here is the Sitecore expert, and here's what he's thinking of, what I'm doing here. So I'm usually the guy who is supposed to evaluate the technical complexity of the project, ask and answer some technical questions, and also I'm the guy who is supposed to analyze the technical requirements. Right. So basically from what I have learned, there are two types of experts. One type of expert is the one who sitting, smiling, nodding, and saying, and do not understand anything, but he will smile and pretend he does. The second one is the guy who do not understand, but he asks a lot of questions till he really grasps the whole project and the whole picture of the project. So, and there is, of course, there is a certain level of technical evolution between one person to another. So basically, the more experienced you are, the more confident you feel, the less you hesitate to ask questions, and less you hesitate to say, I don't understand, and please explain me, etc. So some tips that I can give are never accept the unclear and contradictory requirements. It's pretty obvious, but sometimes people do this. Never hesitate to say I don't understand. It's normal to say this and clear all the things up. And get to know all the project stakeholders, marketeers, content editors. Try to understand their expectations, because sometimes, and it happens pretty often, that the expectations of the Sitecore are really higher than are really high, and people do not know what they are buying, and they never use the Sitecore. They never seen Experience Editor. Well, actually, sometimes they think that it's like something like a WordPress theme where you're dragging and dropping the controls, and you get the website. But of course, it's not like that. It's not so easy, and you have to deal with this. You have to meet and understand the expectation can be higher, and right. So you have to understand the people who are working with the system. And you have to know, have they ever used any CMS at all? Maybe that was a Sitecore, maybe they are using a Sitecore, the Sitecore. And in this case, if they are using the Sitecore, so you have to maybe follow the legacy design and structure that is already used by them, because that will reduce the pain for getting used to some new stuff. That also needs to be considered by you. Right, so we all know that the user requirements are really unclear, illogical, and contradictory. Can be. Well, often they are. And maybe you should understand some reasons behind this. So usually there are two options for the client. So they can create the requirements by themselves, or they can go to an agency. An agency will create the requirements for them. And in the first case, usually the contradictory requirements are because of the several departments are involved into the creation of the requirements. They have a communication gap between them, and they do not think technically, and you should also take this into consideration. The second option, is when they go into to an agency, and the agency is providing them the requirements, but it happens that the agency just do not understand the business processes fully. They are not into the business, and it can also lead to some misunderstandings and contradictions, etc. So in this case, some tips could be proactive, suggest and propose solutions that moving the project forward. From my experience, there was a case when the project wasn't moving anywhere. It just stuck, and there was a deadlock because the agency was waiting for a requirement, and the client wasn't able to give them the requirements. The client was expecting the agency to do something, and the agency wasn't doing anything because they had no requirements, and that was happening for years, and the project wasn't moving. And well, unfortunately, the agency lost this project because the client hired a solution architect who was proactive enough to move this project forward. Then, when the requirements are not clear, of course, you have to make assumptions. Well, you are experienced enough to understand, and well, to be honest, Sitecore projects are not that complicated to understand that this module should be here and this should be here. But all your assumptions should be documented somewhere, and the client should be aware of what you have assumed. And also one small tip is when you're asking questions like, here guys, I got a question, which way we should go, always provide some options, like choose, for example, three options. Option 1, option 2, or option 3. in this case, it will be really, really faster for the client to give you a feedback rather than they will sit again, create a meeting, etc., etc. So all the processes in big companies are really slow, and that could take ages for you to get a feedback. One really specific to Sitecore things are at this stage when you're analyzing requirements, it is worth to mention that you're going to use the XDB and where and what you're going to save there, because client is always often not aware that you are using XDB. What is it and what are you going to save there? For example, you have a form and you are tracking people, because when people are using the users are using the form, they are usually de-anonymize them. So they're providing the details, they're like an email and the first name or even addresses. And clients should be aware that you are saving this information because they might use it in future for marketing purposes or whatever. And talk about the GDPR compliance, if this is applicable for for European, if the project is in Europe, for example. Because that's something that is going to need some effort to do, because Sitecore claims that it is GDPR compliant, but still it has an API, and you still have to do something. You still have to implement some things for, let's say, right to be forgotten or right to be informed. So this is a must-have rights to be GDPR compliant, and Sitecore has an API, but well, you still have to do something. And this is the cost that should be included into an estimation. Next, estimations. Usually at this stage, client want to where is it? Want to have the price for the project, because they have a budget and they have to align with the budget and understand is it worth it or not. The sales manager usually comes to me, and that's the guy. He is asking me to give me a rough estimation, as always, and that's the guy when I'm giving him an estimation after he calculates the budget. It's always happening like that because, yeah, well, because you don't want to to get this risk. And some tips about the estimations and scoping. From my experience, usually what is forgotten to be included, you might really focus on estimating the user stories and break them down, break the user requirements onto user stories and estimate them, but you might forget some really important things that nobody will include into the price but you. And this is the environment setup, and from my experience, it's always underestimated, because environment setup for Sitecore is really complicated, could be really so complicated for, especially for a scaled environment. It's so fragile, it has hundreds of configuration files, and some tiny thing in one configuration file goes wrong, then, for example, analytics doesn't work or whatever. So include the continuous delivery and continuous integration setup, because it's still work that needs to be done. Documentation writing, unit test writing. Usually this unit test writing is somewhere hidden between the lines, because client doesn't want to pay for unit testing. They asking a really brilliant question like, why do you develop with bugs? Why do you need unit testing? They just do not understand it, and it should be just included as a coefficient, or yeah. And then also some things to consider, like define who is taking care of infrastructure setup, because we had a case when, for example, we had to build the MongoDB cluster, or MongoDB cluster, or we have to install the solar ourselves. And it turned out that the hoster company doesn't know how to do this, and it should be done by us, and that also was done for free because we didn't include it into the bill. Yeah, and obviously estimation is a commitment that can always turn around against you, so never ever give some rough estimation as sales manager ask you if you are doing the estimations, because it can always turn around you, and you will be the person who is responsible for that. Right, so more technical. Environment setup, so how do we usually do it? We have usually 3 environments: dev environment, test, and prod. So a dev environment is just a standalone, usually it's just a standalone machine where we are deploying really often. Then the test environment is scaled environment that should be close to the prod, but well, not exactly the same. And the prod, of course, and the build server. So we are running on the build server builds, unit tests, and deployments. So we're deploying to 3 environments. As I said, to dev really often, to test daily, and to prod according to the schedule or release plan. Then some tips to set up the environment. So never keep the keep the vanilla Sitecore configuration clean. Never do something to Sitecore configuration directly. Always do it through patches. Keep the patches inside Git always. But sometimes the native Sitecore configurations need to be updated manually. In this case, always document this, and everyone should in the team should have an access to this document and see who has changed what and when. This is really important because all these hundreds of configuration files should be somehow controlled. Then, yeah, also document the Sitecore support packages that you're applying, and use configuration transformations for transforming the config, and keep everything in one place in Git, for example. So also, how do we use right, so when you're just starting up the project, from my experience, it is sufficient to use the chunk-based development when the team is quite small for you, and yeah, and you have no production running. So in this case, you will have more flexibility, and the development runs faster. Once you have it the production running, and maybe if the team is getting bigger, so then consider to switch to the Git flow. Yeah, and of course on the Jira board, it should be always clear where what exactly is deployed and where the bug is reproduced. Right. So development. So make demos. Demo is really important to get a feedback from the user. So they have to, if you haven't made any workshops with them where you teach them how to use Sitecore, they have to get used to it, and they have to know what you're doing. And demos are a really great thing, but demos are not enough, because demos are usually great. They are really happy to see what you're doing, that the progress is running somewhere. But that's always happening with the they have to use the system, and as earlier you can give them the system to use, the better it's for you, because you get the feedback right away, on the next day they are taking the system. You get bugs in your on your Jira board, and you get a feedback, and this is really valuable thing to get a feedback from them, to communicate, to respond quickly on all the questions they have. In this case, so usually we do it this way. We're giving the test system to them and say, okay, try to insert some content there, because we don't want you to insert the content in a month before we go in live, because it is too less time. You have to try it out, you have to give us the feedback, and you have to write bugs and ask questions, etc. So it's really important. Yeah, so develop your components in one style, make the system intuitive. So because well, sometimes the developers are sitting in different cities, different countries, different continents, and you are the person who is supposed to keep everything under one style, and that makes the system really user-friendly to content editors. Yeah, don't hesitate to ask Sitecore support, because sometimes you're like, challenge accepted, I'm going to develop this, or going to find a workaround, and spend days on this, and it is really worth to ask them when something doesn't work as it's supposed to be. And also, one small tip is measure performance from time to time on your test system, because sometimes it's too late. You're going live like tomorrow, but the performance is better. You have to do something, and you're just sitting there in the office the whole night and trying to create a set up the caches or whatever. Yeah, so this should be. And yeah, also small tip: check the analytics, because usually something breaking it, like a configuration or whatever, and you just do not notice it before you go live, and it also should be checked time after time, like on your test system, like if everything is going right. Yeah, just to avoid fixing this stuff after you go live. Right, and then go live. So as I said, the content editors should start filling the content long before go live, because in this case there would be no surprises. You will get the feedback, and you have time to fix all the bugs. Create go live plan, who, when, and what you do, of course. You have to have a backup plan. Also, apply the security hardening guidelines to prod. It's also something that might be forgotten. Then look into the log files afterwards. Surprises are always there, and change the admin password. Right. That's pretty much it. Thanks for listening. Yeah, special thanks for Brimit team. So we're working together pretty long time.
Thanks, Artem, a lot for your presentation. Any questions?
Thanks a lot. It was a great speech. On one of your slides, at the bottom, I saw about GDPR compliance. It became like a buzzword.
Sorry?
Yeah, in the beginning.
Let's go back.
No. GDPR compliance.
GDPR compliance.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Right.
It's like a developer's question. Let's imagine once more and you receive this task, make our application GDPR compliant.
Right.
Yeah, maybe you could just mark some options, how to test this, or maybe some sources where I could find the information.
Right. Sitecore has a white paper where the API for GDPR compliance for Sitecore 9 is described. But it's only for Sitecore 9. They have an API for implementing this must-have rules like right to be informed, right to be forgotten, and some others. I don't remember all of them. This is one thing. So, but still, you have to use this API and will provide some functionality, right? For Sitecore 8, you have to do it yourself. I guess it's possible because, well, still you have access to XDB, and if the person wants to wipe out all his data, then you technically you can do this, right? But there is no API for this for Sitecore 8. But I think they have a kind of update for
update 7.
Yeah.
It has the same features as
Right.
9.
Right. So update 7 has the same API as.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions? I have a quick question from myself. So yeah, you've mentioned about measuring performance. Do you do some kind of automation based, like on every build, or?
We use just a Google standard Google measure of performance. Don't remember the name exactly, but right. So it just tells you what is wrong with your website. Sometimes it's like we had a problem with the pictures. Pictures are too big, and content editors tend to forget to strict the size. So they are using 4K images in teasers, for example, and CSS is squeezing them, resizing them, but actually this is the 4K image and so this is really helpful for telling them, hey guys, you forgot to to resize the image server side. So we used, and some other online services, just Google them. It's really easy, right?
Okay, thanks.
If you use the Azure platform, Azure will send you notifications when you use the Azure platform. Azure sends you notifications when the degrades, and it's very cool. We even get when something like that happens, and a customer uploads a very big picture on a live environment, we even get a message with the GET request that makes it slow, and you can really point out which image it is, and you can respond very quickly. It's a default feature of Application Insights.
So it's constantly requesting the pages.
I'm not sure how they do it technically, but if you just run Azure Pass with Applications Insight in it, you will get the notifications, because what he probably does, he doesn't pull the site himself, but he just measures every request, and so he can spot trends. Is that right? Yeah. Okay.
Smart detection, you're talking about smart detection.
Thank you. Yeah.
Right.
So that's quite cool.
And there are some other automation things like Test Tomato. We have used that for several projects. It's, well, first of all, it says that when the whole website is down, it will notify you, and when the site is really slow, it also can tell you about it.
Okay, cool. Thanks. If no questions, thanks a lot.
Okay, who has still yeah, bit energy? Oh, I know. You want to ask questions about search. Hey, good evening.
Yes, so our last speaker for today is Daniil with an interesting topic about Algolia search. So welcome.
Yeah, what I'm going to tell you is about search and like alternative search for Sitecore. Algolia, it's yeah, strange word here. Let's well, I will not concentrate on Algolia itself because it's just one of the options, and yeah, that's the option our client chose. So, yeah, we always need some search for Sitecore sites almost in every implementation, and there are plenty of out-of-the-box solutions. Yeah, Solar, Lucene, Asia, Caveo as a like third-party solution, but also nice integrated to Sitecore. And usually we as developers prefer to use them because we just know how to use it, and they're flawlessly integrated to Sitecore. But sometimes someone on client side can ask us to do something strange, to implement completely different search. Why? Yeah, there are few reasons, and first can be price. I'm talking about Caveo, which is not very cheap, and if someone needs something like Caveo but don't want to pay for enterprise cloud license, they can choose something different. Sometimes client thinks that their solution will need something special in terms of performance, and yeah, maybe Caveo or Asia Search or Solar is not fast enough. And yeah, sometimes it can be special language support, because maybe for Japanese market they will need different search with better Japanese language parsing, could be, or some other search features, but well, it's all about some business value for client. So for sure, as a developer, I would not recommend you to use something completely unknown and maybe not better than Solar, but sometimes we have to. And what I want to tell you today, let's not afraid of it. Yeah, there are a lot of alternative search engines which provide some search API, and yeah, that's just a few of them. And yeah, some of them are almost free, some provide some cool UIs, yeah, some has good geographical location through the world, and yeah, someone in our case on client side, someone decided that we need one of them because of some features, price, performance, and for example, we decided to use Algolia. Well, Algolia is pretty good search. It provides instant search, JavaScript framework. It has nice language support, typo tolerance, basically all the things we can desire from search. And yeah, even analytics and some kind of personalization. Yeah. Well, Now we need to implement this indexing, and we need to answer several questions: what to index, when, and how to do deletion updates. And yeah, usually all these search engines provide some clients for all major technologies, languages. Algolia provides Nugget package for Algolia search, which can do anything. You can do with their UI or okay. What to index? We need to, well, if you use out-of-the-box search, everything is already configured. We just specify paths, databases, some exclude templates, and include, and it just works. But now we have to do everything ourselves. We need to configure and understand which database we need to index. Yeah, which are root items of our structures, templates, fields, how to include or exclude if something if we need. Yeah, how to handle language versions. Because, for example, Algolia recommends to use different index per language version. And that means that if you have 40 languages in Sitecore, we have 40 indexes in Algolia server. And yeah, we also need to think about different servers, because yeah, if we build our crawler, then and we probably have several servers, CD and CM, on which server this crawler should work on. If you have several content delivery, maybe we don't want to do this job for all servers. Maybe we need to dedicate one or make everything on content management. When to index? Yeah, that's pretty obvious. We have Sitecore events, especially save events, publish events, and yes, sometimes we must use events, and yeah, we have schedule, and probably we will need to run some manual indexing sometimes, or if client urgently needs to reindex something. And yeah, we need to detect how to delete data, how to update data. Probably we don't need to update all the records. We need to update only a few of them, and we need to decide which records to update, which documents push to indexes, and when. Should it be immediately right after someone changed data, or in the night? And yeah, in terms of user experience, usually deletion is more important, because well, if we delete something from database but it's still in index, and the user finds it on our search page, clicks the link, and he'll get 404 page. So usually deletion is more important, and it should be done immediately, as soon as possible. While update can wait, because maybe search will not give you the most recent things, but it's okay in most cases. For sure, if it's something really necessary to reindex like news, well, we can do it, but major data set can be indexed somewhere in night. And then we have to implement search. And yeah, in case of Algolia, it's pretty simple, because Algolia provides really good front-end things, JavaScript frameworks, and these JavaScript frameworks uses direct access to cloud server storage, search storage, and well, as a backend developer, you just do indexing, and all the UI stuff can be done on front-end side, and can be done really effective, because Algolia supports all interesting and major things you can see on sites like Amazon or Airbnb. All these things are supported, and you can always create your own, like filtering, facets, maps, anything. Yeah, they also provide clients for mobile platforms. Yes, and yeah, InstaSearch.js is a JavaScript library which helps to implement UI, and it supports all major things you need on UI. Yeah, short demo. Can you see something? Okay, first of all, we need some configuration. Yeah, but in Sitecore it's pretty easy to create index configuration, which can exclude different things like included fields, excluded fields, and you can set we can define buttons to allow user manually reindex something. We can set up indexes, we can specify some URLs or routes, and then it's pretty easy to push it to code. Well, on some events, on publish, on deletion, we can push data immediately, or we can use some queue or something, some batches, because usually indexing batches is more effective rather than call a lot of small requests, and especially if massive data import is running or something like this. And then we need to parse our items. We need to push links, images, some categories, checkboxes, but again, it's not that hard as it seems to be. Yeah, we need for sure some scheduled agent which will process our indexing queue and detect, for example, if it's not item in queue, then push them all to index. Yeah, and we need crawler which will use our settings to get all the fields we need, to provide us correct data types, format as we need it, and push everything to our third-party search service. And this is Algolia dashboard. Here are a few indexes. Algolia provides free plan. It's up to 10,000 items in index, which is enough for development purposes, and maybe even enough for small sites. Yeah, you can review your index content here. See all facets. Yeah, and I used Sitecore Launch Sitecore site to prepare some demo content. It's an open source Sitecore solution with some content, structure, and items. Can be used by anyone. And here we have just a few data items. I choose team members and some terms to index. So here in our solution, again we have our configuration, which defines a few fields we want to index. I'll also specify some field names, data types, and yeah, when I publish content on publish events, on deletion events, all data goes to Algolia. And yeah, and you can see this data here, this index. It's just 30 records, but it's enough. Yeah, it understands all the facet type here, show the content. And yeah, at this stage, all we need to do is just to tell our front-end developers or to ourselves how we want to build our search UI. Because everything is already in index, we just need to display it. Here is very simple view rendering with a few divs. Here you can see some just empty divs with IDs. Couple of JavaScript, some CSS, and then here is a JavaScript file which enables this search. Yeah, we initiate some search object, specify widgets. Okay, we want search box, we want some statistics. We can define how it will look like. We can add pagination, facets, and yeah, we can create our own widgets if we need. We can add the maps, anything. Yeah. And here how it will appear. Yeah, it's our search page. And yeah, just so just when I press a button, search results immediately here, and yeah, I can use these facets and data is here, and so basically just works. Yeah, that's it. So just the idea is don't be afraid of new things. Well, we try to tell customers that Caveo is better, that Caveo has good integration with Sitecore, but at the end it appears that it was pretty easy to integrate this into our solution. Yeah, that's it.
Thanks a lot, Neil. Any questions?
Thank you, Daniel. It's a very interesting speech. But a question, what are the advantages of Algolia and why did you choose Algolia?
Well, I'm still not sure why they choose Algolia. Probably they see some business value in it. Well, the obvious thing for me is, yeah, Algolia is very fast. So search results appear immediately when you just press the button. And yeah, Algolia is also geographically distributed. They have servers throughout the world. And that was also very important for our customers. And
all of these out of the box UI widgets.
Yep.
That's cool. But I think it's not freeware.
Well, in the end, Algolia appears not to be much cheaper than Caveo with their requirements. But yeah, again, it's not developer's decision, a decision from business.
Thank you.
Daniel, do you understand this correctly that you couldn't install this Algolia on your servers? So
No, it's only in cloud.
okay. Any other questions?
Any plans to create a module on the marketplace?
There is no really reason for this, because, well, I don't think someone ever will use again Algolia for Sitecore.
But
And
you said that
that's why my idea is not about, well, let's not consider it Algolia, let's just, it's really possible and not really difficult to implement any third-party search engine in a Sitecore and have some profit.
But you said that it is possible to use it for free to some extent.
Yes,
And how much you said the count of items?
10,000.
10,000.
Yes, but again, Sitecore 10,000 is not enough.
It depends
Especially
on
if you have 40 languages and 200,000 items. I think you
yeah,
have
in this
now.
case. And about the QUI that you have implemented, is it completely your implementation of a QUI,
Yeah.
or it's something like?
Yeah, it's based on the regular queue structure, but just a few additions.
So it's not something like a Sitecore extension or. Oh yeah. Was there any need to extend the JavaScript library?
For sure, well, it's still in process on our side, in our project, and our front team is not fast enough, unfortunately. But for sure, we'll need to customize existing widgets. But yeah, again, it's open source, they're all on GitHub. And from what I saw, it's pretty easy.
Yeah, and the response is pretty fast. Do they have any SDN service or servers?
Not sure what they have, but they tell that their typical search response is below 5 milliseconds.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other questions to Daniel? So, thanks a lot. And thanks everybody for coming. We'll see you on the next meetup.
Yeah, which most probably will be on October 23rd.
Somewhere in the end of October. Okay.